We won't, obviously, Anne's there, but, we'll just have to go with the flow. Right, Richard, I'm going to give you a bit of the old, um, oh, she's gone. Oh, yes. So, Richard, you'll have to add people on. So, I'm thinking, why do we have a quick look at this thing that's been? I've had emails off other people about it as well. So let's. Now, the problem is, right? If I put if I put Roos down, if I put Mon down, right? Somebody said it's the airport find, right? So it's coming up and Saint Athan. So whatever it comes up as. So um bones found at airport. That's what we'll type in. Bones bones found at Cardiff airport. That'll do. Right. Do you think we'll find it with that? There we go. Is that it? That's the one. Right. Mystery of which one should we go with? The BBC? Yeah, all right. Which one? Because that's 8 hours ago, isn't it? So we'll do there. There they are. They look exactly like the same types of bodies cut into the rock at the likes of the 5 Mile Lane. But 39 adult skeletons. A medieval cemetery discovered by archaeologists last year has amazed researchers. The site, which is near Cardiff Airport, is believed to date all the way back to the 14th of October in the year 500. When experts first came across the cemetery, they found lots of skeletons lying in unusual positions. And there were also artifacts they didn't expect to see. You could have mentioned the Kama Sutra then, couldn't you? The team working on the excavation, which is when earth is dug up from the ground, so buried objects can be removed. Oh my bloody God.
Oh, don't be like that.
Come on a minute. It's like talking to a blooming 3-year-old. The team working on the excavation, which is when earth is dug up from the ground so buried objects can be removed. Now, come on.
It's Wales, isn't it? Oh no, is it
Yeah,
right?
they are a bit thick in Wales, aren't they? It's mainly aimed at people from Lantwick Major. Have learned nearly all of the people who were buried in the cemetery were women. Oh my
Yeah,
God, were they? I didn't know that. Oh my
yeah.
God, brilliant.
Is it? This isn't the 5 Mile Lane one, is it?
No, this is the
Oh,
one that's been in the news the past 24 hours. I could
yeah.
just have to forget about what that says.
No, it's
Although the
supposed to be
condition of their bones
medieval.
suggests the women, well, from the 500s, the women would have done heavy manual work. There are also surprising signs of wealth and luxury. While most of those found were buried with care, one woman seems to have been put in a ditch in a less careful way. She must have been a Bridgend woman, something the researchers did not expect to see. The team has taken the bones to the lab at Cardiff University, never to be seen again. Every time we think we understand something, something else crops up and the picture gets more intriguing.
Yeah.
And Cardiff University. Well, the thing is, if they end up in Cardiff University, nobody will ever see them again because the bones from the 5 Mile Lane in 2017 are still there. Um, about half the site has now been excavated, and researchers have found 39 adult skeletons so far, and the old remains found are still being examined. But there's only one which belongs to a man,
Oh
and they're not exactly sure what that means. Does it mean to mean anything? It
no.
could be that it's something. Thanks for that, Anne. It could be that it's something particular about this community, a woman-dominated community with green nail varnish, or it could be that this is perhaps just one cemetery within a broader kind of landscape. Probably. And it might be that there's more men in another part of the cemetery, um, and transgender people. Don't forget them. The
They were.
skeletons of Yeah, cheers, Anne. The skeletons of two children have also been found, and their burials have sparked the interest of researchers too. The earth that's been used to backfill the grave looks slightly different to that in the adult graves. What? The earth
Yeah,
that's been used to backfill the grave looks slightly different to that in the adults' graves. Oh, right, yeah. So the earth's come from somewhere else. It's darker and seems more organic. So potentially some time had lapsed between the burial of the adults and the burials of these children. It's more of a mystery. And glass. Oh my God, oh my God, shards of glass. And it that ties us in with the Dinas Power stuff as well. Archaeologists also
yeah.
found thanks for that, Anne. Archaeologists has also found at the site, which could shed some more light on who these people were. Shards of pottery, statues of Lloyd George, and glass found in the graves were thought to be brought to the cemetery by people feasting while they visited. Why do they always talk about that absolute nonsense? This could have been stuff just spread on the fields and they just used it to
Well,
backfill the graves. We're hoping to tell the story of the individuals within the cemetery. There we go. We know a lot about the lives of kings and queens, particularly Freddie Mercury, but much less about everyday people. And never before really have we been able to explore a single community in so much detail and all the interesting interrelationships. That's absolute rubbish because we haven't got any of the men. And how are there any interrelationships? And anyway, fine. That's good. It was a
well,
good
the glass
the glass.
has come from the Levant region, and that's
I
what
could
you
have
said.
told you that.
And that's what you said about the Dinas Powers glass as well, you see. That's the link.
That's the link. That is
Yeah.
a link, Anne. And sometimes you do say things at the right time, right? You really do. And on that note,
All right.
let's just get straight down to our undies, Anne. Not yours, because I know you're not wearing any. Goff, anything you want to say?
On a scale of 1 to 10, in your professional opinion, how important is the find?
Oh, well,
Right, actually,
I
that's
ask you, and I ask Carl.
no. I know. I sometimes sort of. I tried to. I tried to shake up their article a little bit to try and put some more questions in there. That's why I always take the a P a little bit. But on a serious level, okay. If I want to compare it with the bodies found at Saint Athan, which were Bronze Age, that's very important, and it proves again that that there's lots of interplay with changes within the landscape, and flattening the landscape and the mounds and all the rest of it. Bronze Age, we got lots of them. But when it comes down to, and if they were Roman burials, I could probably say, that's really important. But we got lots of Roman burial sites in the Vale of Glamorgan. But when it comes down to burials from the 500s and 600s, that's very significant. And what Andy Seaman was actually what right what Andy Seaman didn't do in that article, which I was getting really frustrated through as I was reading through, he didn't make more of the fact that we've got this is more important than finding those other burial sites because it ties in with the fact that one time we used to say that no, well, my history teachers say that nobody lived in Wales because we've got no evidence of anyone living in Wales between the late 400s and 1066 because we've got no bodies, we've got no archaeology, we've got no nothing. But since then, we've got the big archaeological cemetery at Landock with over 1,000 burials being found, which date from this period. We got the Atlantic Trade and Estate site in Barry, which burials date from this period. We've got the excavations of early medieval stuff at Landock. We've got that going on at Dinas Powys, and Atlantic Trade and Estate, and a few other sites in the Vale of Glamorgan. But when it comes to a burial site, this is quite big.
Okay.
But right, when the reason why I was a bit frustrated at the end of the article when it said about the interrelationships and stuff, that's not exactly true, because what we need to do, we need to work out the interrelationship of this site with the settlement that these people actually lived. That's what's lacking. That is the most important step now. Okay, he's got the bodies. Now we need to link these in with the the
Environment.
likes of a settlement. That's the big thing now, and that's what needs to be seen. And actually, I'm going to chuck in my fourth penneth, right? Some of it described that I didn't really go with much information then at all, but if we talk about female burials, and some are high status and some are well fed, right? There's another avenue that we could go down here. They're actually women associated with some kind of monastery, or some kind of cellular nunnery, or something like that, which would be even more significant. That wasn't even in the piece. Why would there be a collection of women? Nobody's actually discussed that, and that's another thing. Why there's a collection of women, and that might be associated, and it described that women had, some of them showed signs of heavy work. Well, nuns do heavy work. They plow the field. They work the same as men, right? Females in Christianity work equally as much as men, right? So that, and I tell you what, right, it would be really interesting if that in the next few years comes up as the actual reason why we've got all these women.
You know when they do these, like we've had a newspaper report and 2 minutes on the telly about it. Will he's completed his excavation? Will he do a paper, a sort of a document that tries to explain what it is, so everybody can read it, or what?
Well, actually, I'm gonna show you where this is going to be published. It will be published. It will be published in this publication, which comes out every year, which is Archaeology in Wales. And I'm going to say, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but it was great to turn to the back of this and actually see Romans in South Wales being reviewed in this publication, right, by Council British Archaeology.
Any bookshop?
Well, you've got to be a member of the Council British Archaeology, but you can get hold of this. You can get hold of these, and if, for example, right, it will be on my mind now, because if you're interested in the report, then what I will probably do is chuck them a couple of quid and get a copy of this in the post. But obviously, it's not published in this yet.
All right. Okay. That's fair enough. That's okay.
But there will be there'll be a general report published in here, and it will be like 10 pages long with illustrations, and that'll probably be good, but that'll probably be the information you need. But if you want the full report, then that will be right. It's really difficult. You're asking me this because things in archaeology have changed. We're not. We do publish big reports still, right? But it's usually for a niche market, and they're usually not readily available, right? But what will be readily available is what you're describing in a summaried form in this publication. For example, I'm quite proud to say that if you go through the pages of this, oh yes, there's my name there. Barry, Victoria Park, Cadoxton. Oh, there I go again. Cum Kiddie, karl-james Langford. Oh, Llantrithid Place. There's another one of mine. Oh, turn over the page. Rookery Wood, Sully. So you can actually find my name dotted around your on a few pages. But when this does come out, I will it'll probably be not next year. It'll probably be the year after. It won't be next year because he's still working on it. So it'll probably be the following year that there'll be a summary. And because he's going back to excavate more stuff, that means that it'll be a summary again, and there'll be probably a full report in maybe about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So, right. Okay. Richard. Oh, and Richard is going to see my my new special friend tomorrow, aren't you, Richard?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Richard's going to play with my new thing tomorrow. I'm meeting him at 2 o'clock. We're going to open the box and we're going to play with it.
Hmm. That's exciting. Yeah.
What it is, what it is, this book that me and Richard have been working on for 46 years. Um, every time I have a spurt to get on with it, something goes wrong, right? So I've gone through 2 Chromebooks. Did I tell you about this last week about Chromebooks? Did I
Well,
tell you? I,
it's,
yeah, I mentioned that Chromebooks are now made for you to just chuck them in the bin when they go wrong, right? They're not meant to repair them, right? So if you've got
no.
if you've got uh, if you've got something like this, right? I've got to chuck this in the bin, right? I cannot repair it myself, because
Mm.
the basically what goes wrong with Chromebooks is the power cell goes, which is in the main circuit board, and in the main circuit board, it's also the hard drive, right? So if you mess around with it, you've lost a lot, right? So you're not meant to store anything on these things. You're meant to store everything in the cloud. So when these go wrong, you just chuck them in the bin because that's all it is. That's meant being in the bin. So I'm getting a brand new Chromebook tomorrow, and it's going to have the book stuff on it, and I'm going to open up with Richard, and I can say, look how exciting this is, and there it is.
Oh, I think I better
wow.
tell my my brother that he's just bought one. I better
I
tell
I
him they
I,
wear out.
I wouldn't buy a Chromebook, but I've got
Yeah.
to buy a Chromebook because I'm all my stuff is stored with Samsung, um, and not
Oh,
Apple.
Apple.
Because I've got all my photographs and stuff are stored with Apple and that side of stuff, and all my big stuff are stored with Samsung and that side of things, and that's Chromebook. That's not Apple. Yeah. So there you go. Right. Anyway, if there's nothing, Richard, I haven't got anything to say. Anne, do you want to
No,
go on
nothing for me.
wave to us, Anne? I don't know
I'm
why you're
waving to
waving.
I'm waving to Pat. I'm waving to
What?
everyone.
Right. Forget that, Anne. Anything you want to say, Pat?
No, I'm looking forward to some more archaeology.
Did you see the report, Pat, about the cemetery
I
near
don't even know where it is. Where is it?
Oh
near
my God!
near
I tell you what, right? Do you know what I'm going to
airport?
do? Anne, do you know what I'm going to do? As we're going to get on to my presentation now,
Yeah, go
right?
on then.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
Anne, thanks for that. What we're going to do, we're going to type in images, right? And these are the images. Basically, yeah. Hang on for right? Yeah. So that's one of the children's burials, right? So they got 39 burials, 2 are children, 1's a man, and the rest are women, right? And they're basically cut directly into the Blue Lias limestone, which is very interesting that I mentioned
Yeah.
Blue Lias limestone because I've been mentioning Blue Lias limestone today. So I obviously the odds of this being a woman, right, are quite high. So this is one of the female burials. And you can basically see the arrangement of the way they've this has been cut into the rock.
Yeah.
And actually, can I just give you a bit of an overview about burials in the Vale of Glamorgan? And let's just get another one. Let's just do that one there. And actually, if you go directly online, you can get these. So they're not. Yeah, sorry, I'm holding my teeth. They're not wearing hard hats, high vis, and toe cap boots. But other than that, they're doing an okay job. But what I want to say is this, right? Forget my professional crap. But what I want to say is this. Now, what we've had in the past, probably 10 years, is that we've got 5 Mile. The burials at 5 Mile Lane are very similar to this, right? You've got shallow rock, which is similar rock. I think they've got Triassic up there, but some of it, but the similar type of burials. It's cut into the rock, very thin soil. So that stuff at the 5 Mile Lane, which is still being analysed apparently, and still in Cardiff University, over 500 human remains that they found there, and they're mainly dating from prehistory, Roman period, and medieval. I don't know what we got in the middle. I don't think we got stuff in the middle. but that's a comparison. And then I mentioned about the St. Athan. Those are barrel burials, lots of crouch ones, Bronze Age, prehistoric and stuff. And then we're talking about the association with the burials at Fonmon as well. And I think this is all getting mixed in with Fonmon and the airport and stuff. But what we've got is we've got a nice array of burials throughout the period, and I think the one point that Gough is actually getting at, but he didn't actually say it, is that when will we see any of this? When will any of this be available on display? Will any obviously no. None of this is going to be on display. The human remains, they're going to be reburied hopefully sometime. Some of the artifacts you might see, so the only thing that you can actually see is the archaeological reports. And I think one thing that I failed to say earlier on, Gough, which I should have, that archaeology has become very inaccessible now, and it's down to the way things are reported and the way things are funded and the way archaeologists do things. On the surface, for example, we report stuff in the newspapers, and we report stuff in the news, and we write stuff into reports, but then we move on to something else. And it's sad to say that we don't really tell you guys enough anymore, because there's not many in it. It doesn't pay wages, right? And that's the honest truth of it. In the old days, what we used to do, we used to have more lectures like the ones that like the one that Richard said with the men's forum and Andy going to talk there. There was all that, but there's also things that Gough went to the other day with the National Trust to learn a little bit more about archaeology. But now the National Museum of Wales, its main doors is usually closed for refurbishment, and the archaeological department is no longer at the National Museum of Wales properly for public display. The archaeological team is still there just for now, but it's not the way it used to be. So I'm sorry, Gough, we're not as accessible as we used to be, which is a shame. And the internet has destroyed that, because whereas Gough said, how can I get a hold of a copy of this publication, right? We're hoping that you're going to go online, Gough, and you're going to read it online. But to be honest with you, it's not the same. I'm, for example, the stuff that I've got on my Chromebook is now published, so I can delete it all, right? It's not going to be online, right? If I drop dead tomorrow, it's in a book. I'm loving it. However, most archaeologists think that you can get it online and you can see it online, but most of the time it's not all on there. And this is the shame.
Don't they go like into the archives? I mean, like universities have to do dissertations, so if there's a local university, there's people doing dissertations all about these sort of things, but we haven't got archaeology now, have we?
And can I just stop you a minute? And can I just stop you? Just I knew you right. This is the thing. Things have changed right now. We've still got an archaeological department in Cardiff. For how long, I don't know. And there used to be. This is the problem. There used to be Newport University, University of South East Wales. They used to have an archaeological department. There used to be. They used to do archaeology at Ystrad College as well. That's gone. And there used to be a very active archaeological trust, which is not like it used to be. So the archaeological department moving in Cardiff to St. Fagans, which unless you've got a car, you can't get to. So the problem is archaeology has become so inaccessible. And you are right, Anne. You could go into universities if you're a member, if you're a student of that university, and you could, can I see these reports, right? But the problem is if Richard and I need to go and do research at the Glamorgan Archive, we've got to book in advance, and we've got to tell them exactly what we want to look at so they can get it out ready. As in my case, when I went to Carmarthen Museum to see the artifacts, I had to pay to see them. Yeah, I may have been spouting my mouth off and saying, "Look, I handled gold. You know, it was absolutely amazing. We did the live show, and I showed people images of it and stuff." But I had to pay 80 quid to see those artifacts.
Mm, mm.
80 quid. So, you know,
Oh,
I had to pay the museum for their time for two
oh.
members of the staff to be there for an hour and a bit for me
So
to handle
it
these artifacts.
is, yeah, very inaccessible, and I'll get
So
involved.
so yeah, they talk about archaeology being really accessible. It's not. It's not accessible at all anymore.
No.
It's really not. And when you do go online, most of the stuff that you see doesn't make any sense because me and Richard have been there. Yeah, I phoned Richard and said, "Oh, look at this, Richard," and he said, "That's not true." And I said, "Yeah, it's on here, but it's not on you." And then Richard said, "Oh, yeah, it is on here, but they're saying something else about it." And oh, yeah, but they got 3 records about the same thing, and none of them agree. So how the hell are we supposed to work with that? In the old days, somebody used to say they used to go, "Bang, that's what it is." Right now, somebody says that's what it is, and somebody else said, "Oh yeah, but I've got this theory." I don't want your bloody theory. I want to know what it is, and Goff wants to know what it is as well.
Yeah.
Right now, I've got to do what I wanted to do tonight because um right, okay. Why did I get a message from Rachel Reeves then? Right, okay. So who the hell is that? Right, okay. So not Rachel Reeves, the politician. Right, anyway, so I wanted a message from her. Right, so what we got to do, we're going to look at lime kilns and in the Iron Age, right? And so this is going to take us down a nice little avenue, right? And yeah, and again, you know what I've gone and done? I've used a different system to do my research this week. So let's go there. Right. Now, from time to time, we mention lime kilns. Now, lime kilns are structures that suddenly occur, right? And suddenly bring us into an age of industrialization of the landscape. But that's quite fleeting and that's quite meaningless for me to say that. Why did people start using lime? We mentioned this. Why do we, for example, think about the first uses of iron and copper and gold and silver and all the rest of it, right? Lime itself is rather different. And that there in front of us is a lime kiln. It's a hole in the ground. And there's a really interesting site in the middle of the country. It's called, here we go, it's called Barrow, there we go, Barrow upon Sower, right? Or Barrow upon Sower, the River Sower, right? And there's the site where they were developing and they started finding loads of these. And they're lime kilns. Lime kilns are massively important. They really, really are. We suddenly start to see them in the Iron Age. Now, I know me and Richard have mentioned this, and sort of we within our travels throughout the Barron district area, and there's lime kilns from sort of early times, and then Roman period, and medieval period, and then more recent periods. But why are people so obsessed with lime kilns? And this is a revolutionary type of lime kiln design, but that is from the 1800s, and that is from the medieval period, and that could be from the medieval period or the Iron Age. So the point is that these things have different meanings, and they take us to a different way of understanding the landscape. And this landscape here, right? There's likely to be hundreds and hundreds of lime kilns across this landscape. They found dozens and dozens of them as it is, right? So to try and put the importance of lime kilns in if you think about the Staffordshire pottery industry, not too far away from this, the beating heart of our country, and then you go down to the Kent, the Weldon Kent landscape, and you actually see lots of iron manufacturing going down there, iron processing. And you might go to the South Wales valleys and you've got coal, right, where we're obsessed with it. Right. There were times in history that people were obsessed with lime kilns. And but this landscape here is really, really odd and really, really different. But if we're trying to get an idea of what the archaeology of lime kilns to try and sort of get a sort of take on these things, they're basically a scoop in the ground, right? They're typically known as clamp kilns. They're typically known as sow kilns, as in SOW kilns. Clamp kilns or sow kilns. And, you know, iron age lime kilns, you know, are there to produce lime potentially for your purposes at that moment in time. And then you'd backfill the hole in the ground. That's why there's so many here. However, it was really interesting last night to basically say to the guys in Arnside, that's one of your lime kilns. So basically, when we properly think of lime kilns in later periods, what we do think of is we think of these permanent things. And I think Richard would be familiar, maybe Goff is familiar. You do get lime kilns along our coastline, you know, particularly where you've got the likes of Porthkerry and going on towards Roos, for example. You've got lime kilns dotted around the landscape. But if you're using not this one, but these basic holes in the ground, in many ways, these kilns were often found near limestone sources and building sites. And so what we've got, what is lime for? You know, why did people start using lime? It's the same reason why people started using iron objects and copper objects and so on and so on. So lime itself, you could think of lime having many uses. For example, for this type of landscape where you might get you might get acidic soil, for example, what you're going to do, you're going to need to use lime to mix up with the acidic soil to make a base alkaline soil, which would be better for sort of growing some crops. And this is really, really important. But when you think about lime, you can use it in the pharmaceutical industry. You can, for medicine, basic medicine, you can use it in cookery. You can actually use it to place on bodies to eat away flesh and so on. And they've got me thinking last night actually about this. I thought, hang on a minute. If what we think about exposing bodies, right? So that you know, animals would peck away at your flesh, and you know, and maybe animals as well. You know, you want the bones of an animal for a certain reason, and what you would do is you would place the bodies out to be exposed. And then I started thinking. Well, you could use lime. If you put lime on a body, it's gonna the lime is gonna eat away at the flesh really quite rapidly in the ground, and within no time at all. If you want the body out of the ground, or you want to put the body outside and you want to spread lime on it, and the lime does the work for you, that's another reason for lime. And we know throughout ages, you know, people going down the streets and going, bring out your dead, bring out your dead. Well, if you've got a big hole in the ground, you can put the bodies in there and you can put lime on them, and that's what we usually see. So this is quite fascinating. Now, when we're thinking about when they started coming across the concept of using lime, it may likely to have been by complete accident, right? And I actually came up with something else last night as well, which was wonderful, right? And you know, lime kilns themselves, you can actually cook other things with them, right? So, and there's no evidence of this, but what you could do is you could, in later periods, you could have like a lime kiln like this with stacked lime, which would go to sort of this is an exemplary idea what a lime kiln looks like, a cross section. So you've got all these built up layers and sort of, usually it's going to be charcoal and coal and bits of wood. In this one, it's talking about using the likes of peat, right? However, what you could do is to create lime, you need firing conditions of 900 degrees C, right? Which is enough to bake a pot. You can see where I'm going with this, can't you? So if you make what you could do is as you're making lime, you could put pots in here as well, right? And there's some metals you could put in here as well. You could put galena in there. That's going to melt in that temperature as well. And so what you're going to do is just a few quick words. In the first process of lime making, you're going to heat up small, basically gravel bits of limestone, usually Lias limestone, which is 150 million years old. You get that in the Vale of Morgan, which is your blue Lias, or your Carboniferous limestone, 350 odd million years ago, and that's the likes of Flatholm and Friars Point and that type of stuff. That crops up, and you grind it down, make it in small bits, and your best limestone. Some people argue whether it's Carboniferous, that's produced really good lime. And then the byproduct after it's been after you've cooked the limestone gravel for like 48 hours or maybe up to a week, you get a white powder, and all the flecks of charcoal are usually sort of this all burns, even the carbon's gone, it's all gone, right? So it's burnt. So you're left with basically a white dust with little flecks in it. Now, the problem is that that's basically your quicklime, right? And in other words, known as calcium oxide. And there's one problem with calcium oxide. You get that into your eyes, it can blind you. You get that into cuts in your skin, it can do you a lot of damage, right? So these people must have learned about the properties of lime quite quickly. So you can imagine this, the first time somebody's discovered that you can heat up limestone, right? They worked out it's going to, you've got to make sure you don't get it in your eyes, right? So they worked that bit out. So what they've done, right, this one day they've decided to put a load of into a cart, right? And there's no limestone period, right? People just discovered it, I think, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Now, I'll tell you now quickly. So if you're cooking, if you've got a kiln, right, an iron furnace, right, and the iron furnace uses limestones in its wall-in matrix, right? So basically, what's going to happen is that when the when the iron furnace is cooled down, basically your limestone will have cooked, right? And you'll have all this white dust on the inside of the furnace. You think, oh well, what's this, right? And that's probably how they discovered it. And then, that's what we're going to do. So anyway, back to that story. There's a guy going down the road, right? He's got a cart full of calcium oxide, right? Quicklime, right? So he's going down the road with his cart, right? And it starts to rain, right? He don't know it that there's a thermic reaction, right, between water, right, and the calcium oxide. And when there's thermic reactions, basically when water's added, the calcium oxide, it produces calcium hydroxide. There's water added, right? But what happens, this is quite a weird thing, is when you add rain, cold rain, to something that's dry, and the rain itself creates a fire, which is quite weird. So the water reacting with the oxide creates a temperature so high, it's going to be high enough to set light to the cart that the limestone's on. That the calcium oxide is on your slate lime. So usually, this was sold in barrels as slaked lime. The water's already been added to it, right? So they sell it as a slaked lime powder, which is then good for building walls and structures and stuff. Now, I've actually used slaked lime, and people use slaked lime in whitewashing, right? And when we were building this structure, we actually had. By the way, the structure that I've got in West Wales is coming to the end of its use. It was only temporary. So if anyone wants to see this, they should come and see it before it's gone. But anyway, the point is that the structure that we've got here at this minute, we've got we used lime, we use slate lime, and it's taken not quick lime, slate lime, powder, and we've used that, and it's like solid. It's like a solid walls around you, which is absolutely brilliant. And anyway, so let's just talk a little bit more about the wonders
My
of
internet is there. My internet's unstable. You're very like I'm losing you.
People have been losing me for ages, Anne. Goff, are you hearing me loud and clear?
Loud and clear.
Is anyone else
Yeah.
getting any problems?
No problems.
No, mine's fine.
No, Anne, you are the problem. Anne, we love you. We do love
I
you.
thought
Goff,
maybe it was because you're moving
No.
about or something.
no, what it is, Goff, I've got to say, this is a personal thing that Goff wanted me to pass on. He deeply appreciates you coming along to these classes every week, Anne, and it makes his week. Anyway, so the types of kilns. Iron Age, as we know, were scoops into the ground. They were very simple structures. As we know, a sow or a clamp kiln, it's SOW kiln. And then basically this would be quite a I think I've just upset her. These were quite simple structures. So what you would do, you would have a scoop in the ground, right? There you go, scoop in the ground. And then what you would do, you would layer it, right? And there's something else I need to tell you now. So you'd layer it, you'd have all sorts of stuff there built up there. And then in amongst all that, you'd have sort of bits of mixed in. You'd have bits of limestone in there, right? And then you'd have more layers of stuff, and then you'd have more sort of limestone mixed up. And now this is a really interesting one, right? Now, when you read this, right, when you read this, right, you've got to set light to this. Whilst it's right, okay, this is where it don't make sense. When you're reading these in books, right, they basically say that they cap off the top, right, and then they set light to it. Well, you can't set light to it if it's capped off. Basically, this is a one unit. There's no stoke hole into it, and there's no flue into it. It's sealed in. It's like a lozenge in the ground, right, with a hood on it. And this usually turfs, right? So you'd build this up, right? So you turf roof, and basically, so what I basically said is that you usually set light to it before you would seal in the roof, right? And then it would smolder, and then it would get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter at 900 degrees C. And then that would be left to burn, and then the smoke would gradually make its way through the turf and stuff, which is the lid. And the whole point is that this structure itself would be left to burn for 48 hours, maybe a whole week. And then you've got the lime then, which is absolutely great. You've got the lime, but you've got to try and do it when it's not raining, because rain and moisture is going to be an absolute nightmare. So obviously these things are sort of pseudo circular, and what we do say and what we do look at, that the primary purpose of these kilns, as we know, is to create your quicklime. And obviously for lots of things, as we've said, even for building. So lime kilns were strategically located near limestone deposits and building sites to minimize transportation costs. Now, the interesting thing with this locality where they were excavated in Barrow upon Sour is that, the limestone isn't readily available there. They've got to bring it in from sort of, a few sort of a little bit away, but that basically what this is a landscape that's extensive for the likes of its lime kilns. And when lime kilns started to come into the more modern day and age, so we look at this example from the 1800s, when these start to come into from the more modern day and age, the lime itself can actually be transported around the country via your road, your canal, your railway network. And so what you do need for this industry, this is obviously an example from the 1800s. Again, it's interesting that we've got prehistoric lime kilns and medieval lime kilns and later lime kilns all in the same landscape. But that's where I'm going to stop a moment to just basically explain one thing. The reason why archaeologists don't talk about lime kilns a lot in the Iron Age is that they usually don't survive. There's not much evidence of lime kilns in the Iron Age. And the reason why is that usually where the lime kilns have been placed, right, it's a good area, right? And it's usually near where limestone is being mined, a good area. So what happens is that because these things that they're digging out the ground are quite shallow, right? Later lime kiln making obliterates the early evidence. That's why we don't talk about them much in the Iron Age, because not a lot of them survived, to be honest with you. And there's another problem with finding lime kilns dating from the Iron Age. It's a matter of artifacts. Usually when a lime kiln, its life has ended, people just backfill it, right? And it's unlikely that they're going to accidentally discard a bit of Iron Age pottery. They're not going to be standing on the side with Goff saying, oh, Goff, we made a bit of limestone here this week. Like, future generations, what we're going to do, we're going to make a bit of Iron Age pottery. We're going to chuck it in there. So future archaeologists are going to know that we use this in the Iron Age, right? Unfortunately, people from the Iron Age didn't think that in future generations, people are going to be looking for their lime kilns. So it's unlikely that they left anything in most of these things, right? We know by shape and form and associated with, these are actually associated with an Iron Age settlement as well. But it's not guesswork. There is some dating evidence we can use, right? For example, looking at some fragments of charcoal in we can possibly get something from that, but they're very, very difficult to date. And the other problem is the ones from the Iron Age look very similar to the Anglo-Saxon examples, and then the Anglo-Saxon examples look then very similar to the medieval examples, right? And one thing that we always say in archaeology, there's loads of lime kilns here, right? There's loads of there's loads of pottery kilns there and whatever. So obviously, it's a mass production landscape. But there is one weird thing about Barrow upon Stour, this landscape of lime kilns. It's very likely that that they just made a lime kiln when they needed to make a lime kiln. They didn't sell their lime anywhere else. They didn't have a mass industrialized framework for trading their lime for this landscape. They just were good at burning lime. That's basically what it is. This is the thing. It's just trying to make things a little bit more simpler in archaeology. Well, that earlier on when I was reading that article, that was bloody too simple. Oh God, digging a hole in the ground is called excavation, and how to excavate. Oh my God! But anyway, the point is with this is that again, it's so good that we've got this limestone industry and some of the evidence surviving from the likes of the Iron Age. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go on to my notes now, which is specifically about this landscape, and here it is. Whilst I have a little bit of a drink. Anne, is there anything you want to say? Because you want to say something.
Well, I was just watching a program on the Black Country Museum, and the Michael Portillo, he was going to a cavern that was lime. They mined it for limestone.
Yeah.
and it was it was actually in the Black Country, because they
Yeah,
got a lot of mounds of limestone where they started mining it, you know, and they've left it in the
yeah.
landscape, and it's part of the museum now. So it can be there. You can go and see it at the Black Country Museum.
This sounds good. It sounds good. Actually, Annie, you've made a bit of a point today. I was doing some digging here today, and I actually we actually find lots of bits of quartz, you know, in a layer of soil, right? It's not in that layer of soil, it's in that layer of soil, it's not in that layer of soil underneath, right? So that means at one time they were mining here, right? Because
Yeah,
I realized
yeah.
yeah, what I realized, Dan, I thought, right, okay, you just said it, Anne, right? So I'm gonna go on from that. When you've got certain sizes of limestone, right? It tells you that they're doing certain things with the limestone, right? And if you've got small gravel limestone, then it's obviously going to go into a lime kiln, right? If they're big chunks of limestone, they're obviously going to be used in building, right? Because you can't put a big chunk of limestone in a furnace; it's not going to burn, right? Now, when I was looking at my chunks of quartz across the landscape, I thought this is being dumped across the landscape because they were mining quartz at one time, and there's something in that quartz, but I need to move
Mm,
on. I
mm.
don't want to give too much away.
No,
If any of you have been to Pym Saint in West Wales, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So so there we go. So one interesting thing about this landscape is that they've got the lime kilns over there. They've got a settlement at A, right? B is where, now this is interesting. B is where they get the Iron Age lime kilns and the medieval lime kilns, and C is where you get the later lime kilns. And it's likely that any lime kilns that existed at C were destroyed by the later lime kilns, but over with B, those lime kilns directly relate to site A. Now, Goff, this is a good point to actually do it. What I was trying to get at earlier on with the relationship with that find that's been made at the airport is if this was, say, the airport, which it isn't, but say this was the excavation. So say, for example, B, wow, you've got the women being buried at B, right? And then there's later stuff going on at C, so that's eradicated any of the other burials. And then A is the settlement, right? And you're thinking we can now work out a relationship between B, C, and A, right? But that is a metaphor. It's not what's going on with this image today. But that takes us back to the archaeology that we were talking about from the airport earlier on. So again, you know, finding lime kilns and a settlement within the same landscape is again significant, because one of the problems in archaeology, what we do is, like, we've got an Iron Age building, right? Yeah, all right. We've got a castle. Yeah, all right. Yeah, and that's it. So there's no relationship. But
no.
in the scenario of having burials and a settlement, there is a relationship, right? And we're lucky to have that relationship. It's the same as what they're doing is Time Team, you know, the new series of Time Team, and Tony Robinson's involved in this. They've done some filming there. They've done some more filming at Sutton Hoo, and what they're trying to do is work out the relationship between the burials and the wider landscape at Sutton Hoo. Because usually when you talk about Sutton Hoo, you basically bang the drum and you go burial, 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 burial. So hang on, what's the living? You know, how does the living relate to the burial, right? Because you know, that don't make sense. So what you've got to do to make sense, you've got to put you've got to put settlement within the burial context, right? So this is what we've got. So what they've got is that and also I thought this was absolutely fascinating when I read this. This is actually provided to me by there's actually got a society for this. It's called the Barrow upon Soar Society, actually, associated with this site. And one thing that I felt was fascinating. Obviously, we don't have an illustration of this, which is a bit of a shame. And this is the point, Goff. For me to really illustrate this, I would need to get the book, and I would need to take the photographs out of the book to actually tell you what I'm about to tell you. Now, they actually found within the settlement, which is over there, they found on the settlement a evidence of burnt stones, right, broken stones, and then they found a hole in the ground, and they thought, this hole in the ground would have been lined, and as we know, it's a burnt mound. So you got the lined hole in the ground, a clay lined hole in the ground, right, or a stone hole in the ground, right, which you pour water in there, right, and you put like I don't know, you want to boil fish, right, or you want to boil some pulses, peas, beans, or whatever, you want to some carrots and stuff. So what you're going to do, you're gonna get a stone, right, from the fire, and the stone heats up, and you're going to chuck it in the water, and it boils. It boils whatever in that thing, right? Or this is another thing, right? When we were talking about that technique, the burnt mounds in the Bronze Age, not necessarily the Iron Age. So it's really interesting. We've got burnt mounds here, right? One thing that I was amiss to tell you about, right? Let's just read this out. So a few people could afford iron, so they would mostly cook in pottery bowls filled with water, or wooden bowls filled with water. Hang on a minute. How are you going to put a wooden bowl on a fire? And you're putting a pot over a fire is not really good. So how are you going to boil stuff in a pot that's not really proofed for? I forgot to tell you this, didn't I? They would have put the stones in the wooden or the pottery bowl, right? And it works equally as well to boil stuff, right? So you don't have to put the pot over the fire. Now that's really, really interesting, right? Because you could, for example, again, thinking outside the box, you now this is something else. You could have a wooden house, right? That you've got a tiny little hearth in the middle, but you're not cooking anything in that hearth, right? So what you've got somebody outside with a burnt mound, right? And you've got your pottery bowl in the doorway, right? And they put a stone in the pottery bowl, right, which has just been on the fire, and that's gonna boil the water in there quite rapidly, right? And when that stone is finished, right, you take the stone out with a scoop, right? And usually at that point the stone cracks, right? And you put another stone in there, right? And it's quite actually. I know when you burn a stone on a fire, you the stuff that you're going to be eating. Sorry, I just had some fizzy stuff. The stuff that you're going to be eating is going to be like, there's going to be bits of charcoal and stuff in there, right? But it's going to be quite hygienic because you're boiling stuff, and so in other words, the terminology, get to it, Carl, right? The terminology pot boiler comes from where you'd have a pot, you'd have a stone in it, hence where the stone is the pot boiler stone. That's the pot boiler, not a pot that's been hanging over a fire, right? But a pot that's got a stone placed into it, hence pot boiler. So there we go.
Why
So
why did my granny put limpets in her kettle?
because she was sick.
No, they put
Um,
limpets in big iron kettles, It
I
must
want to hear this. Tell us more. Go for it.
I don't know why. I think it must be to stop
And you're
calcium.
being useless.
I thought someone might know.
Right, okay, let's work this out. That was really interesting. So you had a big kettle, right?
Yeah, and it's on the fire,
Yeah. Yeah,
cooking
right. You've
on
got a
the
big kettle,
fire,
and you've
and
got a
you've got
cast iron kettle.
limpets in the water. They no, like just the shells, and they just keep them in there all the time. I don't know whether it's
Oh,
to
it's the
stop it
calcium. Yeah, it's the calcium to
going in the water.
stop. Yeah, it's the calcium with the shells that's gonna be because and when you think about it, right, just think about this logically. It's quite easy to do, right? So the pots are going to be made usually not of copper. They're going to be made of cast iron, right?
Yeah.
You don't usually get copper kettles. You wouldn't have been rich
No,
enough to have a
there
copper, and
wasn't.
nor would
Yeah.
my parents, not my grandparents, right? So you would have had a cast iron kettle, right?
Mm.
So cast iron is made of it. Cast iron's iron, isn't it? So
Mm.
it's acidic, right? Iron's acidic. It the Sesky oxides in soil, right? Uh, uh, that's what gives the color to the soil, the Sesky oxides, which are acidic, right? Which is
Oh.
basically Sesky oxides, hematite is actually iron, right? So a kettle is technically acidic, right?
Yeah.
Limpet shells are alkaline.
Right. Yeah.
No, so yeah, so what that would do, right? That would neutralize the effects of the acid. So
Oh.
therefore, it's and also there's also something else. It's going to be something to do with your this would it be in Newport as well? Because that's going to be heavy water as well. So it's
No,
all
in
going to be
Ireland. Not in Ireland.
yeah. It's all relevant, Anne. It's all going to be to
Yeah.
do with heavy water, light water. It's going to be to do with
hard water.
yeah, hard
Hard
water. Yeah,
water, yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
So
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
oh,
it just seemed
that was
to,
actually quite an interesting one. I'm glad we've been able to work that one out, Anne.
yeah.
Right, okay then. So in Area B, they what they've got this sort of Area B. There we go up there. You've got these ones in Area B. What they've got medieval and Iron Age these things in the ground. So some of them they couldn't work out whether they were Iron Age or but overall they found it's likely that they've got hundreds and hundreds of these across the landscape. They found over 30 of these, which was actually quite amazing, I thought, and these clamp kilns. And it's basically if we just sort of do this, maybe a few individuals would sort of think, right, okay, what we're going to do, we need a bit of lime, we need a bit of lime for whatever we need the lime for. So they dig this hole in the ground, and they would fill it with kindling, any old crap, coal. Yeah, this would probably be a way you might be able to get rid of some rags and anything. You're just going to chuck it in there, right? Because this is one of the things when we this is a really really important point as well, which is something I didn't mention last night. When we look at past people, not like the Romans, because the Romans just chucked anything away, right? And we look at Vindelander and we look at the Walbrook and the stuff that they're finding in there, all the documents and stuff, and shoes and clothing and all the rest of it. But however, we don't find a lot of these artifacts in the Iron Age, right? We don't find loads of artifacts in the medieval period, to be honest with you. And we think these people were pretty poor, right? But unlike us today, where we chuck everything away and we put everything in landfills, right? And all of stuff from Pat's trips that eventually got to be cleared out and chucked in the bin every year. Sorry, Pat. All this goes into a landfill, right? But back then they just burnt it. They burnt it.
Yeah.
And this is why, strangely, my grandparents didn't have any rubbish because they chucked it all on the fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the point. This is the point. These people in the past didn't waste anything, and if it would burn and be useful for what they're doing, right, you just burn it, and that's what you do, right? And even human waste, when you dry out human waste, that's good to burn as well. And this is the thing: we lack evidence in the past, but we don't actually think logically. We don't find these things because they just used it for fuel, easy. So oh, and also, if we want to go back to that, I remember telling people this story in the 1920s. The Egyptian government, as they were taking over the protectorate from the Brits, the Egyptians, they needed supplies for the furnaces in Cairo. So some brights back said, you know those English archaeologists working down the road. Do you know they found, and we worked out that they found 2,000 mummified ibis birds, right? So they went down there, down the road, and they chucked it all in the furnace. They burnt the lot. They burnt all 2 million ibis birds, right?
Oh,
If it burns, Anne, that's the
yeah,
point. So
yeah.
anything's going to go in here, anything's going to be burnt, all your kindling's going to be everything. And then you're going to, in amongst all that, you're going to put little bits of limestone, you know, and all the rest of it. You're going to be layers and this and that. It might smolder over. Because what you can do, you cap that over then. As I said earlier on, it's going to cap over it, right? An inverted cap, right? So that's basically there. And what you're gonna, it's a little cottage industry, right? You're gonna use your lime to spread on your field, right? It was probably only much later when in the 1800s that this was an industrial process, right? But this is an innovative lime kiln that I'm going to show you next. Hang on. This is really innovative, right? There's the steps going down to it. It would be basically complete. It was a hole in the ground, right? So this here is that, but developed into that. Do you know, remember the technique and seriation, right? So basically, it starts off as a simple hole in the ground in the Iron Age, right? The Romans never turned up, whatever, yeah, but they did, right? The Romans advanced, whatever, but then obviously we get into the medieval period, they're using this technology again, but then it developed into this. So basically said, the best thermally wise, thermal shock wise, it's better to have a lime kiln, right, in the ground, because if you've got a lime kiln above ground like this, the thermal shock is not going to be as much. So in other words, you've got to put more fuel into this, right, to heat it up than you do need to put into this hole in the ground. But to have a hole in the ground, you need to get access to it, right? Because the way the limestone works, right, is that what you need to do, you need to draw it out, right? So you go down there in steps, and there's the eye, right? This would have been a complete vent, right? A complete cup vent, right? So basically all the way around, it's sealed in, but at the bottom you've got an eye, and that's where you're going to draw away the lime, right? And you go down it using these steps. So this is really important. So you've got these steps going down, whatever, right? So get back to the innovation, right? I'll tell you about the innovation now. Let's just talk about what my notes say, right? So this lime kiln is sophisticated and far better than the other ones I've shown you, right? From the 1800s. And to give you an idea of scale, right, where's the archaeologist, Danny? There he is. That gives you an idea of scale. There's Danny down there. There he is. And there it is. And Danny's, what we've got is this would be this would be a cone shape. This would be there would be an inverted cone on the top. So unlike the later ones, well, now that's contemporary. That's contemporary. That is contemporary. Where you'd have these open, so all the fumes go up in the air and whatever. And there's talk of people in the 1800s getting so cold in the winter months when these were being lit, right, that they would lie around the heads of these things and they would fall asleep. They'd be asphyxiated by the fumes and they'd just roll in, and nobody'd ever find their bodies, because it'd be turned into a white dust, and then it'd be spread on the fields, right? There might be some teeth in there, but nobody's going to tell you about that, right? But anyway, what you do, right? Can you see these here along the wall are vents? These are vents, right? You know where we're going with this now, right? So so what you do, right? If it's going to rain, right? This is going to be great, because it's you know, when you get rain into when the process goes wrong into quicklime, it's set solid, and the whole kiln's going to be full of lime which is set solid, and it's going to be no good, right? You see, and actually, right, an example of that, if you go down to the Aberthorpe cement house and lime works down the Aberthorpe, yeah, the big house there, out there, there's a big dump of lime, And that's what's happened. It was just somebody left the load out there one day, and the rain got to it, and it just set solid. Job done. They did make cement there as well, but that's another thing altogether. It's just a bit basically the same process with a few things added to make it cement. Anyway, that's another conversation. So what we've got with this, excitedly enough, is that hang on, get that. There's a dome on the top. Right? Actually, there's a dome. Hang on, can I draw the dome? Dome. There's a. It's not let me draw a dome. Why is it not let me draw a dome? There's a dome on the top, right? And that's sealed in. That's a sealed dome on the top. So the excess heat can go through the vents, and this is an innovative. And what you're going to get, temperatures in this are going to be in excess of 900 degrees C, because the thermal shock is in the ground, and it's going to bounce. It's going to radiate back into the kiln itself, and this is going to be really effective. And in fact, I got to be honest with you, this would be perfect for pottery manufacture as well. And if they're chucking a few pots in with when you're making the lime, even the better. That's what I think. We don't have any evidence of them doing that though, because they would have scoured all the lime out of there, taken the pots out, and that would have been it. So basically, it's an eggshell shaped. This thing is an eggshell shaped, and this could be reused. And this was obviously, and eventually this would have been backfilled, and the whatever was used for the eggshell roof, which was probably brick, this was probably used elsewhere, and they found a few of these on. And obviously you've got these internal flues, so this is quite a big innovation, and this could be controlled. This would be able to be controlled, and this could be reused over and over again to create a very high grade quicklime. Now, it's not necessarily the limestone you use; it's the aggregates you put in with the limestone, and you can put other stuff into it, like you do with to make cement, for example, because if I can get the definition of cement here, because cement, what if you type in what is cement, because basically we've explained what lime is. So the definition of cement is not very different, but if we get that correct, so it's coming up here, cement. Oh, right. What is cement actually made of? Here we go. Go. Portland cement. It's not coming up. Oh God, it's coming up with right. It's not giving me a definition. It's not giving me a definition, but they do put stuff into cement when they're burning it off. So it's not giving me a right definition. Right.
Well, if it's Portland, it must be Portland stone.
Yeah, they are putting Portland stone, but they do put bits of stuff in it to make it actual cement. It's not just lime, right?
Sand.
No, that creates concrete and mortar. Cement is actually Portland cement is a specific thing. It's a specific product. Like lime is a specific product. Well, it's not giving me a definition, but there is stuff that they put into cement to make it cement rather than lime. That's what gives it its edge. Probably I'll work that out in the break anyway. But anyway, back to what we're talking about with this wonderful thing, this sort of great sort of innovation. Going back to my notes, right? I've distracted myself there. We will have a break in a moment. So what they've got, so within something like this, in the 1800s, I know we're talking about the Iron Age, but to give you an idea, this is a mecca for these lime kilns. And even whilst they were looking at the site, just that area of the site, there's likely to be hundreds and hundreds around here, right? Most of them are built on. What they found just here alone were 30 kilns of varying different periods, and it was just it's convincing again that in certain areas people are doing certain things. As I've said, in Staffordshire pottery, in the Welding, Kent they got their iron, Cornwall they got their tin, and so on and so on. So in this part of the country, they've got their lime kilns. But in the medieval period, in the Iron Age, were they mass producing it for people to use elsewhere? It's likely no. It's likely that they just used it locally for their own purposes. So what we're going to do now, I'm gonna give you a little bit more spiel, right? And then we're gonna have a break. But I have been gassing on for quite some time, so our break is going to be 15 minutes, and then the end bit's going to be quite short because I've been gassing on for a long time. But quickly, just a bit of a regas on these Iron Age lime kilns. Again, they are shallow pits, and they're not very deep in the ground. And this one itself is around, I think, about 4 meters in diameter. Some can be 2 meters. And when they've excavated it, they've excavated half of it. Again, an archaeological technique to actually show the depth of the archaeology across the middle. And these things, you can imagine, this is a very, very interesting point. You can imagine when archaeologists are flying over the landscape, they see all these round circular things on the ground and they think, that's a barrow. Christ, there's another one. There's hundreds of barrows. They're all over the place. And they go and dig them up, and they're actually medieval or Iron Age lime kilns. That's a very, very interesting point. Now, they were built as and when they needed them. It wasn't like the Staffordshire pottery industry in the medieval period, for example, and the Iron Age. This was a small cottage industry, the small scale workings using the limestone. But it's quite possible that eventually the lime, by about the 1800s, was then being sold on an industrial scale across the landscape. However, at some point in history, people stopped needing and wanted the limestone that created the lime from this landscape. But the archaeological evidence tells us of the deep and great importance that limestone played, not just in the Iron Age, but across the periods in time. And to sort of bring us a little bit thinking a little bit more up to scratch, you get loads of designs like this in West Wales, for example, Tenbury Way, loads of these. And I've surveyed one or two of them in my time. When you go up to Goldsland Wood in the Vale of Glamorgan near Dyffryn, there's one or two really interesting lime kilns there, really, really nice ones, which we've surveyed. And over down by Dinas Powys, there's a few of them as well. And there's a few examples again down near Porthcurry. Porthcurry, yeah, the caravan park that way, and going over to Roost. There's loads of examples of these around. Wherever there's limestone, they are about. And obviously, this is a really interesting one. And they're talking about burning the likes of. You don't often get that, but burning the likes of peat. Now, we had a long conversation about this last night, and I basically said, why would they burn peat? Because peat burns at a maximum temperature of basically 400 degrees C, and it burns at a low temperature. You need 900 degrees C in a kiln, right? And then I'm reminded the thermal. What happens when you heat something to 400 degrees C, right? And that heat is then converted back into the area where it's heating up, right? So the thermal shock is meaning that from that 400 degrees C that you can get from peat, that might be doubled to 800 degrees C, right? Or might actually be the 900 degrees C that you require to actually create the lime. So this was what was explained to me last night, and I think that was a pretty good call. And then I just said that, well, next week we're going to look at peat cutting in the prehistoric period, and a few other things as well. But we haven't totally finished tonight. But we're going to have a nice break, and we're going to look at sword currency and something else, and then that will be us done for tonight. I got to go out and feed my sheeps, but I'd like to know, Goff, is there anything you want to say now?
No, that's very good. Thank you.
Right. And Pat.
What they use all that limes for?
Right, okay. So basically, lime is going to be used to spread on the land to make it neutralized because of the acidic soil. You can use it in building. You can use it in lime wash on walls. You can use it to place in. You can use it for cooking. You can use it for pharmaceutical purposes. You can put it on dead bodies so the bodies rot quicker. You can use lime for lots more today. You can actually use lime in paint today. So there's lots of things that you can actually use lime for.
But they stopped.
Well, what we did was we found that making cement itself was far more cost effective, and cement sets quicker than lime. Lime takes a very long time to set, where cement sets in a very short period of time. So this is why cement's become more popular. In other words, you can build taller buildings using cement than you can using lime, because lime takes longer to set. Because it takes longer to set, you can't have really tall buildings. That's one thing. And also what they've done, lots of the properties that lime are for can create, they're artificially making it now. So this is what they did. This is what they do.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Anything for you, Anne, before we have a break?
No, thanks. That's
And Richard, anything from you? No. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go out and do my. I'm going to do my sheep.
Okay.
I go and see. Go and feed your sheep.
Yeah, I'm gonna remind you. I nearly forgot to tell you. Don't forget your money this month. Goff isn't there. I have to make sure I tell him. Goff, make sure you pay your money now. Get it in a bank account. Otherwise we'll send the lads over. We'll send Jim over to sort you out. Right. Okay. It's now the time is 8:30. Well, we started our break at 8:30, so we'll be back at 8:45.
All right.
See you in a minute, guys.
All right. Okay. Ooh. Oh God. Oh. I just can't, I feel so. Did you have a nice Easter?
Yeah, weather wasn't bad, was it?
No. Oh no, I mean, well, Friday, my daughter came out on Good Friday.
Ah,
It was awful. The rain,
yeah, yeah, it wasn't so good.
but my brother came out on Sunday, so my younger brother. It was nice to see him,
Yeah, it's nice on Sunday, wasn't it?
Mm,
I said it was a nice day Sunday.
yeah, it was, yeah. Very varied now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's supposed to be nice by the weekend or next week, isn't it?
Oh, well.
Supposed to pick up. Sunday's not too bad, I think. And it's supposed to be really nice then, Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, I must admit, without the car now, I find, if I go on the bus, it's much better if it's not raining.
Yeah,
Oh,
can't drive at all now, can you?
I don't know what my wrist.
Oh, of course, yeah, you broke your wrist, didn't you?
Yeah, my wrist. I mean, it's a lot better than it
Yeah,
was, and the bruising and everything's going down. So I think I will be able to drive, but
yeah.
not far. I won't be going far though.
Uh-huh.
Just to the shops.
Yeah.
Well, to the doctors.
Uh-huh.
Doctors, hospital, town. That's about it, really.
Uh-huh.
But going to town is better to go on the bus because, the parking,
Yeah, that's the
you
thing.
know,
Oh,
they're only giving you 2 hours now in Tesco's and 3 in Asda.
oh,
So it's not too bad,
oh,
I get my food delivered anyway.
oh, well,
Uh,
it's nice just to be able to get out of it, isn't it?
Surprising who you beat.
Yeah,
I met another lady who'd broken both her wrist and her elbow, like one arm and one
yeah,
wrist before Christmas. And she was all right, she'd managed to get through it. But then there was another one who had swollen, like all her legs swollen up, It's she'd not, you tend to like take it easy,
yeah.
and yeah, she got heart problems, so gotta change her medication or something.
Oh, Bill.
Mm.
Yeah, it's always something, isn't it?
Mm. Mm.
Full frontal bondage.
What?
Mm.
Well, I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. Right, we're back. We're back. My sheeps. I just fed the sheep. And oh, Annie, your sheep is fat.
Oh no.
She's
You
I've
sure
got
she's
two
not
big.
pregnant? You sure she's
No,
not
no,
pregnant?
no, no. Big Mauer. She was always big, right? Big Mauer had Annie, right? But Annie's turned out big as well. So two
Oh,
big. I've got a Mauer and Annie.
oh.
It's a shame that Annie hasn't got horns, really. So
She'd look better, would she?
no, I think she looks absolutely gorgeous. Your sheep looks gorgeous.
Oh.
We've also got a teacup. We got a teacup sheep. Basically, we Harry, that was the firstborn of my Borere sheep, right?
Mm.
That lived.
Mm.
She's my first lamb. She had the baby, and her baby was absolutely tiny.
Oh.
There was absolutely tiny, really, really
Oh.
small.
Like at the run.
Well, Michelle said a runt, but a runt sort of describes the litter. and they don't have litters. They usually have one or two
Oh,
max.
right. Yeah.
It's really rare for a sheep to have more than more than two, right?
Yeah.
But she's tiny. She's known as a teacup, ewe, because she's tiny.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
no.
right.
So you're
So
going to
anyway,
give them a
let's.
break. You're going to
What?
give them a break now, are you, from lambing?
Oh, they've had a break. They've had a
Oh.
break. So what we're gonna do? What we're gonna do? We're gonna what we're gonna do is that Eden's two purebred Borarays. We're gonna put Quintessa and Olivia back with him, and then the rest are gonna have a break. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Goff wanted to hear all that. He's Goff's into sheep big time. Goff comes actually from a nautical farming family.
A nautical farming. Oysters.
Yeah. Well, no. What Goff used to do is his family used to farm sheep on board boats.
Oh,
Only we had lamb over Easter. It was lovely.
you're joking, aren't you?
You could afford lamb.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, we couldn't. Well, the problem is I love lamb, but I can't cook. I can't cook meat. It always ends up.
You can't cook meat, right? Anyway,
I'm
we're
sorry, but no, I know you're
yeah.
vegetarian.
Keep apologizing. Keep apologizing, Anne. It's fine. It's okay. So we're next going to look at these, because I told you the last bit would be a bit short, but because I think I did about an hour and 20 odd minutes and whatever. So yeah. Anyway, let's do. No, I did a lot more than that, didn't I? So what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce next week's class, which is also not just peat cutting next week, but it's going to be looking at the Iron Age agricultural landscape. So that's what we're doing next week. However, I wanted to mention which are these, right? Which are hitherto known as Iron Age currency bars, right?
Oh,
Now, we had a little bit of a debate about this, and it took us into another direction. And British iron bar currency. Now, I thought, well, when I was thinking about doing this week, I just thought, well, what haven't I done from the Iron Age, which would complete things? And I thought, right, okay, lime industry, that's good. And then I thought, oh, right, okay. Oh, currency bars. Yeah, I just got to mention that. So, and then it took me into another direction. So just hear me out. So British Iron Age currency bars, bar currency, was a form of currency consisting of iron bars that appear to have been the first currency used in Britain as far back as beyond 200 years BC. Now, when I started discussing this word currency, right, and we started using the word barter,
yeah.
there is only an area of southern England that are using these iron bar currency. And I'm thinking, well, if it's a currency, everybody's using it. Right. Well, okay. What I mean by that is that you go anywhere in the world, right? If you've got American banknotes, you can buy anything with it, right? That's called currency, right? If you go anywhere in the world with a British banknote, you're probably not going to get the same reception. But and then what you've got is for example, the doubloon in the period of the 1600s. Anywhere civilized would see the Spanish doubloon, whether it's silver or gold, as being the currency. That's what we mean by currency, right?
Yeah.
Is this really to be described as currency? And I'm thinking maybe it's not. So hear me out on this one. So lots of these currency bars are like this. They're not massively big things, right? But lots of these currency bars have been found at places like Danebury, in the county of Dorset, and they've been found at a location known as Hod Hill. Now, Hod Hill is a really interesting site because Hod Hill is actually is the same size, slightly bigger than Maiden Castle. It's a huge weird sort of Iron Age bank and ditch enclosure hill fort. Now, when they excavated at Hod Hill, they actually come across 27 of these Iron Age currency bars. Now, to call it currency, let's go back that way. To call it currency, you need to have somebody else who's also got iron bars, which might be half the size of this, or might be double the size. In other words, you get, like in our modern money, 1 pence, 2 pence, 5 pence, that type of thing. So to be currency, you need to be able to exchange these things, right? In the broadest sense, they're not currency. And in the same way that we look at coins in circulation in Iron Age Britain, they're not technically currency either, because it goes down to this. If you're in Anglesey and somebody gives you a bag of this, we've got evidence of this actually. In Anglesey, somebody gives you a dozen gold coins, right? And in the Anglesey, you don't actually use coins. What are you going to do with those coins? So it's not currency, right? So it got me really thinking, and it's a bit like Jack and the Beanstalk, isn't it? The boy goes to the market with the cow, and he's got a bag of beans, and he goes, and his mum says, "Oh my God, that's our cow. That's you've just got a bag of beans," and they chuck out the bag of beans in the garden, and then one of the beans grows high and goes to the giant and able to get gold. It's a bit like that. And it doesn't make sense as currency either. Currency doesn't make sense because in the modern day and age, most of us use the internet. And if, for example, this has happened to me when there was that bank crisis in 2010. I looked at my bank account before I went out. I thought I got 50 quid. I'm going to buy a printer. So I went to the shop and I said, right, they gave me the printer. And I said, right, here's my card. Oh, your card's been declined. So I went to the bank. You can't get any money out. There's no money in RBS anymore. The bank's collapsed. So what do you do in that circuit? So therefore, that's not currency either. Currency has to be something that's reliable. So anyway, back to this. So these currency bars have been found in a number of different forms. And this is one thing that I've got to explain next week, because some iron currency are basically long bits of metal, right? Other Iron Age currency are also weird trapezoidal shaped bits of metal, right? That's also iron currency, and I'll show you. We look a little bit more about this in detail next week, as a little bit of a break from the agricultural stuff. So what we're talking about is the general weight. Now, if I was to ask you what weight you would think these were, you might actually say 2 or 3 kilograms. But these are actually not very big at all. The average weight of these is about half a kilogram, and they look like swords, and the swords themselves make up of 40% of these iron bar objects that we find in the Iron Age from 200 years BC onwards. So there's one thing that must be said about them using iron, right? And that is, there's something obvious. We've not identified that they've got copper currency bars in the Iron Age. They don't have gold currency bars in the Iron Age, and they don't have silver currency bars in the Iron Age. They've got iron currency bars in the Iron Age. So that tells me one thing. This thing, in all the lectures that we've given them, we've only actually managed to trace one iron torque, right? Because they're so bloody rare. We've found one in France, and I've been going on about from ages, right? But the point is, iron was so valuable that people would use these things in trading. And they're not like me going up to you, Anne, right? Have you got a horse? Right. I'll give you 10 of these, right? I go away with the horse. You have these 10 bars, and you carry them around with you well, you haven't got a horse anymore, Anne, so you can't really carry them in the horse. what these are actually meant to be melted down, right? These are actually meant to be melted down. They're not meant to be like this forever, right? So the 27 that they found at Hod Hill would have been a major area for the landscape. It was it would have been a tribal center for the people down there in Dorset. And the ones found at Danebury to appear to have been ones that were partly being used to process things with. So in other words, the ones that they found at Danebury, the Danebury Hill Fort Iron Age site, was they were obviously cut bits off them, and they were actually breaking bits off to actually use them to maybe make a knife, nails, and all the rest of it, right? So it actually got me thinking again. It actually got me thinking about this whole thing about currency, because it made me think about something that is found in Scotland about 100 years ago. When the archaeologists were excavating the Roman fort of Inchchut Hill, which is a large Roman fortress northeast of Glasgow, in the middle of this site, they find a ton of iron nails. Yeah, I kid you not, 1 ton of iron nails. I think there was like 1 million nails that they actually found stacked up. Now, the archaeologists are explaining these nails, right? So these are, when they say that they find these nails smack bang in the middle of the fort, right? With a load of clay on top, and the Romans have deliberately hidden these nails, and they don't want the local people to use them. But when I'm thinking about that, I'm actually looking at them a different way. Maybe they could have been deliberately left there as a form of currency, as a form of trading, bartering objects. They may have not been deliberately hidden for the local people. They were far more valuable than that. No, there's all those different things that come into my mind, right? Why would you go through all the effort of burying these nails? Why didn't you just chuck them all in the river? That would make more sense. Just if you want to get rid of them, chuck them in the river. Why are you leaving them there, right? Anyway, the point is, or that maybe the Roman leaders we're going to go back and use those nails at a later date. And but anyway, the point is, what I'm looking at is when you think about, for example, in the Danegeld, in the Viking period in the 800s in Britain, they find the Danegeld, which is like a taxation of the local Anglo-Saxon people, right? What they talk about is you find loads of hoards of silver and loads of hoards of bits and bobs, right? And they basically say, oh, this is going to the local silver merchant, the local scrappy, right, to be melted down. But what if you think the scrap is actually currency? Yeah, it's not actually deliberately for the silversmith alone. That could, because we find too many of these hoards around the place. We really do. We find too many of these Iron Age hoards. That's that again. Yeah, we find too many of these Iron Age. We find too many of these hoards in the Viking period. All this scrap metal, and I'm thinking they can't all just be for. When you're thinking about it, you're thinking we find all these hoards of broken bits of metal, and you're thinking. Is it all of these metalsmiths are so ditzy that they just forget where they bury these things? And the answer is no, because these are not classed as scrap. So why should the scrap be classed as scrap? Maybe it's stuff that they're going to say, actually, right, that grain that you've got, can I give you a bit of silver for it? Yeah, that's all right. I'll have a bit of silver, right? And that's the way I'm looking at things. When you start to look at things a little bit wider, you start to think about things in a bigger way, right? So, and basically, the reason why we're looking at one image, Goff, and not 1,000 images is simply because one a sword type iron currency bar looks the same as everybody else. At a place known as Me on Hill Fort, right? I'm not exactly sure where that is because it doesn't tell me, right? In 1824, guess what? They found nearly 400 of these iron bars at that hill fort in 1824. 394 to be precise, right? And you're thinking, oh my God, that's quite a lot. But then you look at other hill forts and there's no currency bars, and you're thinking, well, okay. So if Hill Fort 1. And you've got Geropolis, the Roman, the Iron Age town, also in Dorset. So you've got Hod Hill. They've got loads of these bars, 27 there. They've probably got 100 there stacked away. Gyropolis, I'm really not sure we've found many at Gyropolis at all. So if there's none to be found at Gyropolis, then obviously the people trading these iron currency bars are at an advantage over a whole Iron Age town. So therefore, they can't be simply classed as currency. And they can't simply be classed as bartering either. They're classed as an important resource that is being moved around the country. Now, the person that talks about these bars is actually the likes of Julius Caesar. But before we get, and this is another weird thing, right? Somerset over there in Bath and the likes of Glastonbury, they create like sort of weird shaped, sort of spit shaped currency bars, which we'll show you next week, which they don't produce anywhere else. The ones shaped like plows and bay leaf shaped ones, you know, sort of trapezoidal bits of metal, iron metal, they're to be found in Kent, the Midlands, Cambridgeshire, and London way, but they're really not found elsewhere. And the ones that are shaped like swords are to be found in the heart-beaten southern heart of Britain, like around Cleaver, about Hampshire way, Dorset. But they're also to be found up by the Humber, which is quite odd. So the distribution of these is quite weird as well. They're not sort of. Oh, by the way, we found half a dozen in Cardiff. No, we haven't done that. We found half a dozen in Cornwall. We haven't found that, right? So they can't really be again obsessed with the term currency, right? So what appears to be iron bar currency was mentioned in Julius Caesar's commentary of the Belgic Gallic War, Commentari Deo Bello Gallico, commentary of the Belgic Gallic War. He mentions iron currency bars. He mentions these people use iron currency bars. But then again, the Romans are also trading lead pigs. They're trading iron bars. They're trading gold and silver bars. They're all over the shop, right? But that is to go to places to be melted down. Belgic War. Even though he's referring, most people think to iron bar currency, which is like this. The translation may be wrong. He may have actually been referring to iron ring money. So that puts another thing on it. You know, when archaeologists find iron rings, right, and they're in a row, they always put them on slaves, don't they? Right? That could actually be another form of currency and not slave rings. Yeah. To be honest with you, right? Got to be honest with you. Putting an iron ring around somebody's neck, right? That's a bit of a waste of metal, surely, right? You can just tie them up with loads of other things. So what we're misinterpreting as iron rings that used to go around, that they find lots of iron rings in the Iron Age, that might actually be currency as well. However, iron bar currency is considered more likely in the light of archaeological discoveries of these, but I'm not convinced. So what we are going to do now, we're coming closely towards the end because I just heard Pat's husband whispering in her ear and saying, look, we got to get drunk tonight and watch a film. So we're not going to be on too long. And there's a few people online, and oh, hang on a minute. There's a few comments online from people as well. So I've got to say hi. I gotta say hi, and they're talking about Star Wars. But
Anna's iron bars.
Anna's online, Emma's online, Jarden's online. Anyway, and Jarden said to say hello to Anne. I spoke to him today.
Oh, hello.
He's a nice guy, Hugh. What did you? Oh, that's his real name. Sorry, it's Jordan. Jarden. Anne, did you what did you just say before I go on to the last bit?
Oh, did they have iron bars in Star Wars? No.
Hang on. That's a really interesting question. When you think about how the Star Wars universe is created, right? They actually use digital money in the main, right?
Oh, right.
So they don't actually use physical money. right? So
Yeah.
that is in answer to your question.
Right.
But talking about physical money, um, um, this is the whole thing that we've got to be very careful when we use the word currency.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to say next week, we know what we're doing next week. We're going to be looking at Iron Age, not so much looking at the settlements and stuff. We'll put a bit of that in there. But we're looking at sort of farming and how to identify Iron Age farming. And basically, what I'm going to do is explain something which links in with the what other stuff that we've done with the Limekilns, for example. That when you go into upland areas, right? Archaeologists frequently say, look at that upland area there. It was abandoned in the Iron Age, right? So those ridge and furrows are not medieval; they're Iron Age because people wouldn't have been farming in some upland areas in the Iron Age or the medieval period because they had already been abandoned in the Bronze Age. So that's how you can identify that the field patterns that you're looking at are actually Bronze Age, right? And it's the same thing with the Iron Age. So when you look at the landscape, you can really understand that if you see purely Iron Age landscapes, right, then it's likely that that landscape was abandoned in the Iron Age because they haven't done any farming there since. It's the same like Warren Percy, where you've got that wonderful village in the middle of the country, that medieval village, where you've got all these medieval fill patterns. Well, the conditions on the landscape got so bad they didn't plough the land anymore. They just decided to sheep graze there, right? So even in the medieval period, they're abandoned in landscapes, and you can really tell that from the field patterns. And this is I'm really, really interested to see this image of a reconstruction of a landscape. I like this one. And why do I like this one? They're showing a muddy trackway in the middle, right? A really muddy, sort of awkward, muddy trackway. And you're thinking that's what it would have looked like in the Iron Age. It would have been mud everywhere and little fields behind, little field systems behind. And this final little image is actually care of English Heritage. It's a beautiful image. Hopefully, I can dig a couple more of these out next week. I've got a big book, actually. I'm going to get some out of that. And this is from English Heritage. Really, really nice view. And you can get an idea that some of that is medieval. Most of it's medieval, but some of it could actually be later or earlier. And hopefully, we'll get a little bit of a definition of what we're sort of talking about when we're understanding this type of landscape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask any questions from anybody online. Including Anne's two big fans, and also Emma, who would have wanted to meet you at Chepstow, Anne, and you let Emma down. But then again,
I'm
I know
so
you couldn't
sorry.
make it.
I'm
No, you don't have
sorry.
to be sorry. You weren't well that day, so there you go. So and Jarden wanted to meet you as well, Anne. Your number one fan online.
Oh, oh dear.
So
Yes,
yeah, go
yeah.
on.
I am sorry I missed it. And Patty's, aren't we? Both sorry we missed it now.
Well, basically, what we might do is, if we do another one next year, we'll probably might be Ustry Gunlice because it's a really nice hall there, and we'll just basically that was the Ustry Gunlice one was I would say the better one because
That's the top of the world.
it was packed. Actually, and it's only 1 hour away from you.
Oh,
Honestly,
yeah.
seriously, now it's less than an hour away from you. It's basically,
You
yeah.
gotta go on. You gotta go on a Sorry.
Yeah, go. Don't worry, Anne. You can say sorry as much as you like. Right, is she on the phone now? That's terrible.
No. Oh, can I go now? I got a phone call.
All right then, Anne.
Thanks ever so much.
Anne, we'll see you next week, Anne. Night, Anne. We've been saved by the bell. Night, Anne. Right, Pat. Any questions from you?
No, thank you. No.
Okay. This should be an easy one tonight. You won't have anyone interfering with you tonight, Goff. So, Goff, anything you want to say?
No, it's very good. I look forward to next week when you finish it all off.
Good. We will. Richard, anything from you other than the fact I'll see you tomorrow at 2?
No, that's it. Oh, the only one thing.
Is
these
Richard going to play with
currency
my gadget?
bars,
Oh, right.
currency
By the way,
bars.
did I say to everybody, don't forget your monies for next month, your 50 quid. I mentioned
Yeah,
it. Go, Goff,
well,
I'm
only
checking
happened.
on you, Goff. Go on,
Maybe,
Richard.
yeah.
Go for it.
I was just on about those currency bars. Why are the ends folded over? What's the
Ah,
point
like
of that?
tapered in. Like tapered in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I
like
folded over when I.
yeah, they're slightly folded over.
Hmm.
Let's just have a little look back on the image because that's not in it. Let's just see if we can um make this idiot proof. Hang on a minute. Let's just say right. So they are slightly folded over. So there's got to be a reason why they're folded over because that's gonna be a little bit more work because
Yeah,
obviously that's going to need to be hammered. That's going to be have to be folded over. That's going to be annealed. That's going to be a heated nail. So that's more of a process. Why don't they just have a bar that is just a bar? Why do they need to have it
yeah.
folded over? Now that's a really interesting point. Um, that's any ideas, Goff? Any reason why that could be like that?
I'll ask my son. I don't know.
Yeah, Goff is going to ask his son, who's a blacksmith. Right. Yeah. Anyone got anything they want to say on that? Because it's a really difficult one. No.
No.
Okay. Okay. That's a really good question. Well, Goff is going to ask his son why that would be, and who's a blacksmith. So, um, that would be a really good. Is he still a blacksmith, Goff?
Yeah.
Good. Good. All your blacksmithing products that you need, go and get them from Goth's son.
Right.
So right, okay then. I don't know if any. That's a good point, Richard. We don't know, so we'll. I haven't got a clue on that one either. It might be something to do with the way that they could be mounted or rested or secured or a transportation thing or a status thing. Really difficult to say. It's other than having a blacksmith looking at that, we don't know. Right. So, anything else, Richard or Pat or Goff wants to say?
No, good for me.
See you.
Okay.
See you next. We'll have the money by the end of the month.
Oh, well done, Goff. Thank you very much.
All right.
Anyway, night, Goff. Night,
Bye-bye.
Richard, and night, Pat.
Bye
Night,
bye.
folks.
Cheers,
Night,
all.
Bye.
Go on.
night, guys. Have a good one.
Oh.
Right, cool. It was really clear tonight, isn't it? Right, so anyone want to say anything online before I finish? Don't I look absolutely gorgeous? I do look gorgeous tonight. Look at that. I look so good. I look so good, Emma. Right. Nice to have you along, Anna, Emma, Jarden. Better late than ever. Better faking late than ever. Looks like a Star Wars quarry. What the what? Hey, do they quarry Star Wars toys? If Pat right, okay. Poor Pat, always on trips. Well, yeah, it's the stuff she smokes. Life doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. Currency. Yep. Never heard of Julius Caesar. Do you mean Queen Cleopatra? 7 lapdog and lover. What? No? What? How can you not heard of Julius Caesar? I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, so many thanks for joining us tonight, and that's it. And we're gonna give you love. Save my. There's a song there in there. Give my love to you. Ooh, ooh. Hey, don't I look good there? Like that. Like that. Yeah. Beautiful. Look at that there. Yeah, loving it. We were chatting all through. Were you? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, Jarden. He's a stud magnet, Jarden is. Anyway, I'm gonna go now. Speak to you soon. And any donations really gratefully appreciated. Yeah, just any questions, and also if anyone wants to chuck a donation over, this is one that we occasionally use. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. Buy me a coffee. .com. Buy me. Is that supposed to be buy me a coffee, not cup of coffee? Because you could have a mug of coffee, I think. You eat mug or trying a cup of coffee, maybe, you know? Right, there's the link. Good shave. Yeah, it's good. It's good. This is good shave. Look at that. Whoa. Whoa. I had a shave like that when I was paying Dorothy. Maybe I'm doing a female role. Oof. Right. Oh, I had to phone the bank today, but yeah, gone. Yes, I lost the doodah, so I'm gonna call it a night. And um, yeah, okay. So that's what we're gonna do. There's two of us online now. I'm gonna call it a day, and nothing in the chat box, nothing there in chat box one, nothing in the chat box two, nothing in the chat box three. I'm over here. Diolch yn fawr. Many thanks for joining us tonight. I'm gonna be off. I need to lie down in dark room.